Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. Michael Darcy, your host here as always. And today I'm going to break down the Kansas City Chiefs' 17-10 victory over the Baltimore Ravens in the 2024 AFC Championship game. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, your Kansas City Chiefs are going back to yet another Super Bowl after defeating the Baltimore Ravens on the road in Baltimore by the final score of 17-10. And with this win, the Chiefs advance to their fourth Super Bowl in the last 5 seasons. We are witnessing one of the best runs in NFL history, and in my opinion, the Chiefs are one win away from establishing a dynasty. And man, this win just feels so incredibly special because going into Baltimore, the Chiefs were underdogs. The Chiefs have been underdogs all postseason long. Going into Buffalo, they were not favored to win the game. They won 27-24, shocking everybody in Buffalo and around the NFL. And going into Baltimore, I was told all week long that there was no way that Lamar Jackson and this high-flying offense of the Baltimore Ravens with a running game that couldn't be stopped and a defense that was the best in the NFL was not going to lose at home. This was Lamar Jackson's time. This was the Baltimore Ravens' time to finally beat the Chiefs and go to the Super Bowl. And yet again, like we've seen year after year after year, Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs team does not care what the media says, and they find a way to get the job done and just crush the soul and the heart of every Ravens fan in Baltimore and really every NFL fan around the league because they know that this Chiefs team is a force to be reckoned with in the AFC, and they prove that in this game. Man, from start to finish, this game just felt like the Chiefs were prepared. Going into it, I was hearing a lot of stuff about how there was no way that the Chiefs offense, an offense that struggled all year long, could score on the number one ranked Baltimore defense. I mean, this Baltimore defense was legit. They had all pros and Pro Bowl guys littered all through the secondary and the linebacking core and even the defensive line, and it didn't matter. The Chiefs were still able to get off to a really good start. Patrick Mahomes completed his first 10-plus passes. He was as efficient as they come in the first half. And the Chiefs dropped 17 points. They scored first, and they scored often in the first half. And they went into the half leading 17-7. And so you were up by double digits, and you really felt good about how the offense was playing. In the second half, that was not the story. They were not able to score again. But the Chiefs' defense, like they've done all year long, put this team and the offense on their back and won you this game. The Chiefs' defense had 3 turnovers. Charles Omenihu, who had a strip sack in the first half that I believe George Karlaftis fell on. That was a huge turnover that the Chiefs didn't end up capitalizing on, but it took a possession away from Baltimore. Then the biggest play of the game, in my opinion, was a play by L'Jarius Sneed to force a fumble at the goal line of wide receiver Zay Flowers, and that ball ended up falling in the end zone, getting called a touchback, and the Chiefs saved a touchdown and got the ball back. L'Jarius Sneed, I mean, he's been the best corner all year in the NFL, should have been named All-Pro. He won you this game with that play. That saved a touchdown. By that point, it would have been 17-14, and who knows what the momentum of this game would have been after that. So L'Jarius Sneed finding a way to, jar that ball loose using the Charles Tillman peanut punch, it looked really, really good. And it was special for L'Jarius Sneed because earlier in the game, Zay Flowers was able to catch a really a deep ball by Lamar Jackson, and he kind of got up over L'Jarius Sneed and taunted him. And that taunting call ended up haunting the Ravens because they had to take 15 yards back after I think what was a 50-yard play downfield, and they were not able to capitalize on that huge play. And so L'Jarius Sneed was the guy that got the last laugh with that forced fumble. And then late in the fourth quarter, Chiefs safety Deon Bush. Deon Bush was a guy that I have not heard his name since training camp. Deon Bush picked off Lamar Jackson in the end zone late in the fourth quarter. In my mind, that was the thing that iced this game. But we're going to get into what actually iced this game in a minute. But defensively, the Chiefs were as good as they come. And this defense has led this team all season long. They came out in the warm-ups wearing In Spags We Trust shirts, which actually are available on Justin Reed's website, so you might go check that out. But the Chiefs' defense held firm in this game, and that's why you're going back to the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. That's why it happened. So much props to this defense. You could not have gotten there without this defense playing out of their mind in the second half to keep this offense afloat. And let's just talk about the play to end the game for the Chiefs. On 3rd and 9, with 2:19 left in the game, Baltimore had used both their final timeouts and only had the 2-minute warning to save them. And on 3rd and 9, Patrick Mahomes drops back and in a one-on-one scenario, throws the ball up to Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who caught a 32-yard pass falling down to ice the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. The same guy that this year dropped a game-winning touchdown pass against the Philadelphia Eagles won this game for the Kansas City Chiefs and sent them to the Super Bowl. The same guy that people were claiming should be cut at the mid-season point just sent your team to the Super Bowl. It just goes to show you that Marquez Valdes-Scantling really internalized a lot of what was going on and was able to make big-time plays down the stretch for this Chiefs offense in back-to-back weeks. He had a couple really big catches against Buffalo, and he had the game-winning catch against the Baltimore Ravens to send this team to the Super Bowl. So, man, it is absolutely insane that in a down year, a year that nobody thought the Chiefs could compete for the Super Bowl, including me. I thought this team was a wild card or maybe divisional round exit until I saw that Miami Dolphins game in the wild card round. I think after that I had a better sense of, okay, maybe this team was able to flip the offensive switch. They dropped 26 in that game and they left a lot of room to score more. So I think that was when this offense made the transition. But ever since then, they've done just enough. And Patrick Mahomes, like the best quarterback in the world that he is, he's using this defense to take him to where, all great quarterbacks want to go. And that's the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes is relying on this defense that was ranked number 2 during the season. I'll tell you what, guys. This defense is better than the Baltimore Ravens defense, and it's better than the Super Bowl matchup against the 49ers defense. So I really think that down the stretch of this Ravens game, the Chiefs defense basically said, we are not going to give this one up. I mean, it was really hard to pick against Baltimore if you're not a Kansas City fan. I mean, Baltimore, like we've been talking about, has the MVP in Lamar Jackson. They have the number 1 defense in like every statistical metric you want to look at. But at the end of the day, the Baltimore Ravens did not have Patrick Mahomes. And this defense of the Kansas City Chiefs held the MVP, the future MVP winner, Lamar Jackson, to 7 points. They ended up getting a late field goal in the fourth quarter, but it didn't matter. And that one play, that one touchdown that they gave up, it was because Nick Bolton got lost on Zay Flowers in coverage. So outside of that one blip, they played just about as well as you possibly could have. And going into the future, that bodes well for this Chiefs team. But I wanted to talk about a few statistical, anomalies that helped this Chiefs team win. They had 319 total yards, which was less than Baltimore. They had 336. But the biggest metric, in my opinion, and we talked about it earlier on in the video, Baltimore had 3 turnovers. The Omenahu strip sack, the L'Jarius Sneed forced fumble at the goal line with Zay Flowers, and then the Deion Bush interception late in the fourth quarter. I mean, those 3 turnovers were the difference in this game. And one other metric that I think is really worth noting is that the Chiefs had more rushing yards than the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs had 89 rushing yards opposed to Baltimore's 81, and the time of possession really indicates that. The Chiefs held the ball for 37 minutes, and Baltimore only held it for 22. And that is a substantial difference when you have Patrick Mahomes on your sideline and Lamar Jackson, who is trying to get a running game going. If you're down early like Lamar Jackson was, and your team, specifically the defense, can't get off the field, you're not left with a lot of time to run the ball. And I know a lot of people were talking about how Baltimore abandoned the running game, and on a couple plays where Gus Edwards and even Lamar Jackson had a designed run, they were able to have great success against this Chiefs defense that, according to most of the people throughout the NFL, aren't very good at stopping the run. My counter argument to that would be the Chiefs baited Baltimore to throw the ball. The Chiefs said, Lamar Jackson, we know that you're great on your feet, and we know that you have a great running game with Gus Edwards and all those talented running backs. But they basically said, hey, Lamar, beat us with your arm. And it was not going to happen. I don't care what anybody says. I think Lamar Jackson is a good quarterback. I think the difference between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes is substantial. They're not even in the same league. And I know that Lamar Jackson's about to win his second MVP, but coming into this game, coming into the AFC Championship game, throughout his career, he was 2-3 in postseason games. He was a guy that never even really played very well in the postseason, and they beat the Houston Texans at home, and everybody said that Baltimore had arrived. And watching that Texans game, something just fell off. I know that Baltimore looked good. They dropped a bunch of points, but there's a difference between playing the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Houston Texans. The Kansas City Chiefs have been in this moment more times than Baltimore has in the last 10 years. And so why would I pick against the Chiefs? I didn't pick against the Chiefs going into this game, but why would you go against the team that has all of this postseason experience of winning these games? Lamar Jackson has been in the playoffs and has not done well. And so that's why when it came time to choose who you thought was going to win, I thought the Kansas City Chiefs would find a way to get it done. I didn't think that it was going to be this low scoring, but I did predict it to be a pretty ugly game. It was going to be close from start to finish, and that's exactly what it was. But kind of going back to talking about the postseason experience for the Chiefs, you could kind of tell in the beginning of the game that the Chiefs mentally overpowered Baltimore. And we could talk about the pregame with Justin Tucker trying to warm up in the Chiefs side of the field where Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were trying to warm up, and Travis Kelce ended up throwing his tee and the football, away from where they were practicing, and that stirred a bunch of controversy pregame about how could the Chiefs do this. And there was a moment where Baltimore's defensive back, or maybe it was a Baltimore wide receiver, and our defensive backs got into it pregame and they were jarring at each other. And then once we got into the game, Baltimore made a lot of costly penalties. Van Noy had one against Kelce where Kelce quite literally baited Van Noy into giving up the penalty. And then later on in the game, the what was it called? The not unsportsmanlike conduct, the taunting call against Zay Flowers. That is a moment of where the Chiefs kind of were in their heads, and it caused the Ravens to react negatively like a team that hasn't been there before. And that is to be expected when your team hasn't been there before. But the Chiefs mentally, in my opinion, won this game against Baltimore before it even began. And listen, the Baltimore Ravens were a talented team, and this was always going to be a close game. But if you can beat a team mentally before you even play, I mean, the results will follow. And that's why I think the Chiefs had so much success in this game, because Baltimore was very clearly rattled, at least early on. And I think that's a big reason why the Chiefs won this game. And so going forward, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to face the San Francisco 49ers in a Super Bowl rematch in Las Vegas in Super Bowl 58. As we all know, the Chiefs beat the Niners in Super Bowl 54, giving Mahomes his first ring. But this is going to be a great game. I think that my mindset going into this AFC Championship game was whoever came out, whether it was Baltimore or Kansas City, was more than likely going to win the Super Bowl. These were the two best teams left in football, and I think that the Chiefs beating Baltimore in the fashion that they did, crushing their will and taking away everything that they did successfully. I mean, this Baltimore team, offensively, they could not be stopped all season long. They beat everybody. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs had this postseason experience. They had the defense, and they had Patrick Mahomes, which at the end of the day overwhelmed them, and that's why the Chiefs were able to win. But, Baltimore, coming into the game, they ran the ball extremely well. Their wide receivers were good. Their defense was stout. And so they were on paper the best team, but the best team doesn't normally win. And in fact, if you're going back to Kansas City Chiefs teams of old, the Chiefs have always been the underdog, and when they are the underdog, more likely than not they win. And in games that they are favored, like I think in Super Bowl 55 against the Bucs, they were favored, the result was not very pretty. The Chiefs play their best football when they are underdogs, and that's what they were in this AFC Championship game, and the result, again, was positive in the Chiefs' favor. And all week leading up to the AFC Championship game, I like to draw parallels. I like to look at games from the past to see how maybe narratives are the same, or how, each team that faces the Chiefs in these big games, what they have going for them, how it maybe relates to what the Chiefs have faced in the past. I know that, in 2019, it was that the Chiefs could not stop Derrick Henry. I remember talking about that the entire week, that if you could stop Derrick Henry, you'd win the game. And nobody else believed it, but I had faith in the Chiefs defense. And what did they do? They stopped Derrick Henry. I think he had like 69 yards rushing, and the Chiefs won that AFC Championship game. And to me, I think that this Chiefs team right now reminds me a lot of the New England Patriots team that beat this Chiefs team in 2018. Tom Brady didn't have the most stacked offense. He had, I think, Julian Edelman, and Gronk was still on the team. But that defense in 2018 for New England led them to the Super Bowl, and they beat the Rams in a really ugly game, like 13-10. This Chiefs team reminds me a lot of that New England Patriots team, where even though they aren't at their best, they're still able to beat teams that are at their best. And the Baltimore Ravens this year looked a lot like that 2018 Chiefs team. I mean, outside of the fact that that Chiefs team in 2018 had maybe one of the worst defenses ever, but it felt like Patrick Mahomes going on the road playing the Brady-type villain was going to bode kind of what we saw in the past against the Chiefs, and that's what happened. So I really think that it was just a perfect storm of things, and the Chiefs were able to find a way to get it done at any cost. And they used their defense, he leaned on it, and Patrick Mahomes made the right throws at the right time, and it was good enough to win. And the Chiefs are going back to another Super Bowl, and that is just absolutely incredible. And before we get out of here, I want to go over the offensive stats from this AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes was 30 of 39 for 241, throwing one touchdown to no interceptions. Isaiah Pacheco had 68 yards on 24 carries. The Chiefs' running game did kind of get shut down in the second half, but it didn't really matter because the Chiefs scored all of their points in the first half. Travis Kelce led the team in receptions with 11, going for 116 and one touchdown. Rashee Rice had 8 catches for 46. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 2 receptions for 38, that big one being that 32-yard pass from Mahomes to ice the game and send the team to the Super Bowl. Justin Watson had 1 reception for 16 yards. Isaiah Pacheco had 4 catches for 14. And Noah Gray had 2 catches for 8 yards. So the Chiefs didn't have a ton of success, offensively out of Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, but the guys that you needed to be big in these moments, they stepped up and they were huge for this team. And going over to Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, 20 of 37 for 272, 1 touchdown to 1 interception. That interception was horrible. He threw it into triple coverage. He had 8 carries as well for 54 yards. He was Baltimore's leading rusher, which I think that a lot of people probably thought Gus Edwards would get that nod. Gus Edwards had 3 carries for 20 yards. And the longest run he had was 15 yards. So outside of that one run that he broke off, he didn't do anything. Zay Flowers receiving had 5 receptions for 115 and 1 touchdown. Nelson Aguilar had 1 for 39. And outside of that, you had guys like Justice Hill catch 4 balls for 34, and Odell caught 3 passes for 22 yards. So I think that the Chiefs were able to, maybe not look better on the stat sheet offensively, but when you look at, the plays that they made in crunch time, or at least in the big moments, the Chiefs were good on third down. They struggled on fourth down a couple times, but they got the fourth downs when they needed to, and they built enough of a lead to use their defense to take this thing home. So Once again, the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Baltimore Ravens in the 2024 AFC Championship game by the final score of 17-10. And with this win, the Chiefs advanced to play the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. I actually just got the word that I will be in Las Vegas covering this team at Radio Row this week, so I'm super excited for that. But until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video, and go Chiefs!